Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to everybody present. So for my part of the presentation, I'm coming from a different perspective here because I'm from computer science. So I'll be talking on research opportunities for high performance computing, or high performance computing acronym is HPC in bioinformatics. So the outline of the talk, I'll give some background so that we understand some basics, and then we'll talk on the relevance of high-performance computing to biology and examine some research opportunities and look at some challenges. So what is high-performance computing? HPC encompasses a collection of powerful, take note of the word powerful, a collection of powerful hardware systems, your computers, software tools, programming languages, parallel programming paradigms. Note the word parallel. And this collection of powerful hardware, software, programming languages, and parallel programming paradigms, they solve a large problem faster than using single commodity systems. So in other words, HPC is also known as supercomputer, very powerful computer systems that can solve large problems faster than using the normal traditional computers that we know of. So if you had listened to what Dr. Nau said earlier, I noticed her keywords were a lot of data, a lot of information, and how do you process this a lot of data and a lot of information? You will need very powerful computers to do that. So here we're looking at high performance computing. And some background, high performance computing has been in use as early as 1950s, but it started with the community of researchers from the physics domain. The physicists were using it. You know, they do climate simulation. And then in the 1970s, then it started to spread to aeronautics, climatology, and astrophysics. At that point, it has not reached biology yet. But in 1996, until now, HPC has reached biology. Biologists has begun to realize the importance and the need of HPC for their work. And it was apparent when I heard what Dr. Nauf was talking about just now. There is a need for high-performance computing in biology. Just a little history on HPC architecture, how it evolved. Earlier, I was telling you that HPC is a powerful collection of computer systems. So how did it start? Very early, if you look from my left there, it started as a big iron supercomputer. By big iron, we mean a very big machine that has to be placed in a big and special room. It is very proprietary, and it was only afforded by very top-notch researchers and universities. Not any university can afford a supercomputer. And then there was a move towards clusters. Clusters is where you connect hundreds or thousands of off-the-shelf PCs. You know, you have your board, the motherboards, the existing computers that you have, you can connect them together. And when you connect them together, they become a single powerful resource. That architecture is known as PC farms or Beowulf clusters. And then it moved to what we call the grid. The grid is where computers are connected. In this sense, the grid is different from the clusters earlier because clusters is very localized. It's in a local area network. But with grids, you start moving to a wide area network. You can be geographically separated, but you can still combine your computer resources to form a powerful computer system. And now we are all familiar with cloud. Now high-performance computing has moved to become like a cloud where a network of remote servers hosted on the internet can now be used to store our data, to manage our data, and to process our data. Actually, cloud evolved from the grid. Okay? All right, coming from a computer science background, the way I look at biological data is that I see a lot of data, diversity in size. There are many types of data. Just now, sorry, I'm getting excited here. Dr. Now was talking about genome data, protein data, SNP data, and so on. There's a lot of data, diverse and very huge data. And these data sets are complex. And from a computer science perspective, we see that there is a need for this data to be managed, organized, and analyzed. I guess I also remember Dr. Nauf ended on that note that the data has to be analyzed. You need to do some analysis, some prediction on this data. And there's a need to understand the correlation, the structure, and the pattern of data to make inferences. Now, that's for the biologists to do. But from the computer science perspective, that's how we view biological data. So some scenarios, Dr. Nauf has quoted her research problem, and some scenarios that we can look around us in bioinformatics is, one of it is to solve fluid dynamics equations, to model blood flow through your arteries. And in that way, a surgeon could compare the different options in the computer to decide on the best procedure for a patient. So simulation is done first. So with simulation, when you have lots of equations to be solved, you need a powerful computer. And then you can also model protein folding. In protein folding, you have to find the lowest energy configuration for all amino acids that make up a protein. There are just so many configurations. It is an NP-complete problem, and hence you need a powerful computer to do that modeling. And now, with cheaper sequencing technologies, more species will be sequenced, and then there's a need to store, access, and analyze the genomic data. And hence, again, we can observe that there is a data explosion happening in biology. A lot of data is being produced from the sequencing, the high throughput sequences, right? Be it for gene or protein, and there is a lot of literature being produced now, a lot of publications in bioinformatics, and hence, we also need to go through a lot of literature. And with all the modeling that's required, the prediction work, the analysis that's required, there is need for more compute power. Biologists need computers that are more powerful, right? And also, the way the projects are run right now, it is more collaborative in nature. There is no way, a lot of times you will see researchers working together with collaborators from not just their department, but another department or another university within the same country or from another country. It is always now collaborative in nature. So with these observations, we can see that it is desirable to have a high-performance computer. So what do we do with this data? There's so much of data. So what do computer scientists focus on when they have this huge amount and massive amount of data? We look at how to represent that data. How can we represent that data so that the computer, the program that we write, can then analyze or execute the program for the biologists? And then we write algorithms to do data analysis. So coming from a computer science perspective, that's basically the focus. There's more actually, but I'm just giving a very broad introduction here. So as for the opportunities for high-performance computing, there is a need for an infrastructure to provide users with the ability to store and access data. You've got so much data, you want to store it somewhere. Once you store the data, you want to be able to access the data. So you need infrastructure to store and access data. Is it enough with just a single PC? At the rate that the data is being produced by your sequencing machines, you can't afford to have it all kept in just one single computer. That single computer must be a very, very powerful one so that it can accommodate the volume of data being generated by the high throughput machines. And there's also a need to interpret analytical results and then repeat that analysis with different assumptions, parameters, or data sets. So you need to do simulation. And for simulation purposes, with so much parameters on so many data sets, you will need a very high power computer. And you also need to provide an ability to drill down on each piece of data and understand why they are seeing such results. So these are opportunities actually for computer scientists. Opportunities for computer scientists to work with the biologists so that biologists can solve their problem using the high-performance computers. And this requires expertise in parallel algorithms and computing infrastructure for scalable and high-performance process. You need this capacity, this human capacity, which specializes in parallel algorithms. The challenges. For the computer scientists, the main challenge, from my experience, is to understand the biological problem and translate that problem to the computer science representation in terms of the data and the process. What actually is the data for that particular problem? And more challenging is, what do they want to do with that data? If a computer scientist does not understand that, then the computer scientist cannot write a program to accomplish that particular function or that particular process. And for the biologists, on the other hand, the biologist has to translate the problem in a way understood to computer scientists. So in other words, they need to be able to talk to each other in the same language. We need to talk in the same language. Yeah, we're speaking in English now, but when it comes to technicalities, when we start discussing problems, we may not be able to understand each other until we sit down together and discuss that problem. And with high-performance computing, there is also this challenge of managing the infrastructure, right? The powerful computers, the governance of the infrastructure, especially if you're sharing resources, you're sharing data, and there is this issue of governance and control of that big data infrastructure, which also involves privacy and security issues, because we're dealing with data here, data that's shared among the users. So that is another challenge that we'll be faced with. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.